name's Michelle Rank, and this is our So Fun Club for the month of October. And I tell you, this month is all about scraps. Now, if you're anything like me, I have a hard time buying, say, a yard of fabric, using maybe a third of it or a half, and then you have leftover pieces, and you love the fabric because you bought it, but I just can't give it away. I can't throw it away. So I use all my fabrics from the littlest bitty crumb all the way up to large pieces that are left over from, yard cuts. And on this episode of our So Fun Club, I brought in a bunch of different things to use with your scraps. So we have something like, oh, this one was so much fun, and I'm going to have a demo on it a little bit later, but this is with crumbs. It's a scarf. It is so much fun, and I can't wait to do that demo at the end of showing all our products here. But I've got so much to show you. I made everything, and it's gonna be a blast. So let's dive into our scraps for the month of October. So the first item that I want to talk about is this quilt here. We're going to show it full size in just a minute. But what I did to make that is I used the Gypsy Quilters scrap tape. Now you'll notice that this one is bigger than the one that we've talked about before. This one is 13 inches wide, and it's 10 yards, I think. Yep, 10-yard roll. So the amount of quilt blocks that you can make with this are pretty spectacular. Now what I opted to do was to do a diagonal block from end to end, and I used up my scrap strips. And on this one in particular, I don't know if you're like me, when I do my binding on my quilts, I usually just eyeball it and go, it needs 8 width cuts. And then sometimes I will only need 6.5, sometimes 7, but I end up with leftover binding strips. And that's what I mostly used, was my binding strips. I did use several different sizes so that the string quilt blocks have different variants in the widths, but overall it was so much fun to make. So take a look at this finished one. You can see that there is a block that is mirrored around, and I used all of the Gypsy Quilters scrap tape to put this quilt together. Now, being that it's scrap tape, it went together super easily. And some of the advantages to using this scrap tape is it will stabilize your fabrics. So you don't need to worry about the warp or the weft of the fabric or the grain. You can just go ahead and stitch individual pieces in different angles and not have to worry about them getting wonky or getting stretched out. I love this scrap tape, and I've made several things already with it, and I know you will too. And being that it's 13 inches wide, you can cut it down to 3 inches, you can cut it down in half. There's so many more options for this wide scrap tape from the Gypsy Quilter. Now the next item that I want to showcase is actually 2 items. The first one is Creative Grids, and this is our Scrap Crazy 6. And what that means is in this packet, it has 4 different acrylic templates that you can use to make a bunch of different quilts. And what we have here is the Scrap Crazy 6 book that goes right along with it. So in this book, there's lots of different ideas that you can use with your templates. Perfect thing like peanut butter and jelly, 2 different things that you can use to create some pretty fabulous quilts. So the first one I did, I just did random, just putting pieces together and putting them up. You'll see on the close-up of this one, there's no right or wrong. I literally just grabbed my scrap fabrics, cut a bunch of them, sewed them together randomly to get the individual blocks, and then piece them together. It was super easy. Now this particular quilt, I did not use the book. I only used the actual acrylic set from Creative Grids. Now this next one is featured in the Scrap Crazy 6 book. It's got a large flower. You will see this nice large red flower on the inside, and you'll see when we show it big, it's so much fun. And on this one, we use just one of the templates in the ruler set. Let me pull it out. You'll see that you get multiple ones, but we only used one of these to make this quilt. And I deliberately did it kind of like red, white, and blue, so it could be a little bit of Americana summertime quilt. But once again, that one is featured in the Scrap Crazy 6 book. You'll also need to get the template set to make this wonderful quilt. So the next item that I have to share with you also uses scraps. And on this one, we have the Stash Hash quilt pattern. Now, I fell in love with the simplicity and the use of colors. So this particular quilt that I have to show you here today, I've used an organized color scheme. So each of the stars has a different color. We have orange and greens and reds and purples. And I used up my scraps, but I grabbed scraps that work together for the quilt. It also has other blocks that you will see in the full size picture here. And I also want you to take notice of the quilting on the central squares. I basically did it on my machine. I grabbed a quilting design that is in my CM17 and I stitched it out, and then the rest of it is done with straight line quilting. But once again, this pattern, Stash Hash, uses a little bit bigger pieces of your scraps, but I coordinated once again all of the stars, and I used kind of like a bright jungle theme type of colors, and it's just so much fun, and it went together like a snap. So I highly recommend Stash Hash for your larger scrap pieces. The next item that I have for you to use with your scraps is the Basics template set. And this is the 2.5 inch size. Let me pull this one out real quick so you can see what this template looks like. And I think it's kind of important. First off, it's got this wonderful carrying case, so you can always make sure that if you put it back, it's going to be there for you. But you have this template set here, and you can see it has lines, there are angles, and that's what we use to create all of these little blocks. Now, when putting your different pieced blocks together, you can make this beautiful star pattern. Now, I opted on this one to only use blues and white, and I only used scraps for all of the blue elements. The white element, because I had so many to show, I needed to make sure that I had enough of one color, so it is one basic white fabric used for all of the background things. But once again, all of the blues were from my scraps. So in here though, you will see that there's multiple different items that you can create using this wonderful basic template set. And on this large pan out of the quilt, look at how nice all of those blocks go together to make this pretty fast and easy quilt. So if you've got lots of the same colors laying around, this would be a quilt that using kind of small pieces to put together. And it was another one that was pretty darn easy to put together. And all these blocks go together like a snap, and you end up with a pretty striking quilt in the end. So once again, this one is with the basic template set. So the next item that I brought in, I want you to know that I did not forget that we have a lot of our customers that love machine embroidery just like I. So this is So Necessary. It's a design, and look how stinking cute it is stitched out. Now it's got a little sleeve on top so you can hang it or dangle it. Perfect for any sewing room. It's just a little fun little additive and uses a lot of small pieces or scraps that you have laying around. Now I love patchabilities and I love the items. One of the things that I really love is that you get very detailed instructions. And if you wanted to use your scan and cut, you can use these images and cut precisely. But on top of that, they give so many great instructions on how to put it together. Super fun, super easy. And the other fun little thing that they have is their USB, which contains all the designs, is actually like this credit card. Super small, it flips over, so it's nice and protected. And if you notice, it has the design image on it. So you're never going to put this away and go, uh-oh, where did it go? Because you will always know how to use this one because the images are on the actual, once again, USB that just pops right out. Super clever and convenient. So this is Patchabilities, and this is called, whoops, let me hold up the right one, So Necessary. Little sewing thing to put in your sewing room or a perfect gift for any of your friends that sew as well. Okay, the next item we have is for foundation paper piecing. One of my favorite things and my go-to projects that I love to do. Now, foundation paper piecing is actually done using paper. You will sew on the paper. It's a process. I recommend that you get an add a quarter ruler when you start this. But this is the perfect plan if you've never done it to start. This is the log cabin block. It's a 12-inch finished size block. And with that being so large, it's easier to use your scraps to all of these little pieces and placements. Now, I really fell in love with this. This is a type of quilt that I've wanted to do for a long time. So it's basically, and you'll see on the close-up here, I've got different angled bars where I lined up my log cabins, the lights and the darks, so that they make stripes. Now look on this close-up of this quilt. You will see that I've used nothing but scrap fabrics, but I've used white scrap fabrics on one side, and then on the other side of the log cabin, I used my bright fabrics, all leftover scraps, to create this wonderful quilt. You will also notice that I did a feather on all of the white fabric, so you will see that I did a little free motion work. And then on where I have the bright strips, I've done just a straight line quilting. So a combination of two different types of finishing on this quilt. But I absolutely love it. I love the log cabin, and I've never done a log cabin that makes that strip or angled bit. So this was a first for me, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So once again, this is the log cabin template. This one is made and designed by Lori Holt, which is It's Sew Emma is her company. So you will see that once again it makes 12-inch blocks, but you get 42 sheets. Now I use this to create that quilt, and I've got quite a few different sheets left over, so enough to make another quilt as well. So I love this product. I love that it's really user-friendly for anyone that's just starting out with foundation paper piecing. Okay, the next item I have is from one of my favorite quilt designers. This is from Laura Heine, and this is called Floorology. So you will see on the close-up of this quilt, it has got lots of leftover bits and pieces that we've used to create this beautiful floral scene. I love the background. I love all the colors. I think they're peonies, but they could be pretty much so any flower that you want them to be. You will notice on the full picture that I actually have added some butterflies in the sky. And then with these type of quilts, I've used a double-sided adhesive, steam-a-seam, that type of thing. And that way you can secure your cutout applique pieces down to your base fabric and then iron them on. And then what you've done, you'll notice, if you look real close here, I've done a really tight grid line, straight line quilting, something anyone can do with a sewing machine. And I've just gone really fast and easy, straight lines all the way down and all the way across. And I've done them close together. Now what I did do after that was I did do some free motion quilting to secure and give an outline look to these flowers. So I used a black thread, and you'll notice on the close-up, you can see that black thread that goes around to give like an outline feel to all of the pieces that I put together. This quilt was a breeze to put together. It's another one of those quilts that Laura Heine has designed that really lets you reach into your scraps and make something pretty fabulous. So with all Laura Heine patterns and designs, you get a pattern, you get complete instructions, and you will also get, let me get it out, a full-size pattern that shows you all the different pieces. Now you can use a light box, but I found that it was just enough and easy enough just to use with your steam-a-seam, putting it on top and using a Sharpie to make your marks and know where your pieces are. One thing that I did that I found very helpful was I made a number for each individual piece, and I numbered it on the piece, on the paper for the steam-a-seam, as well as on the pattern. That way I got everything cut out, all the pieces, I put them in a bucket. When I was ready to assemble the quilt, I can refer to this diagram and pull and find my piece and put it together on the actual finished quilt. So let me hold it up one more time here. Isn't that just striking and gorgeous? Once again, Floorology, and the designer is Laura Heine. What a great use of your scraps as well. So the next item I have to use with your scraps, this one actually uses some of your smallest scraps. So this is by Kimberbell, and it is called Emma's Collage Pillows. So I loved it. I actually cut out some of the little pieces to show you. These were leftover pieces. So you're going to use steam-a-seam or double-sided adhesive, and you're going to just freeform some fun shapes. Now these are all just little pieces, so you can see these are, you know, some of them are 1 inch by 1.5 inches. They're just little tiny pieces of fabrics that you're going to use to make the collage part of all of these different projects. Now this one comes with 3 different pillows, but there's multiple sizes as well. It is a machine embroidery, so super easy to do on your machine. I absolutely love doing this, and I did one for my mom as well. The first one that I want to show you the design, it just simply says home, but look up close. These are all those little itty bitty pieces of those fabrics that make the collage part of home. And then I simply made a pillow form. I had a little pocket to the back, and I added the ranks because I have this displayed at home on my sofa. So once again, the word home, and it does include the little branch with the leaves, and it's all with little itty bitty pieces of leftover fabrics. So that's the first pillow that you can make with this Emma's Collage Pillows. The second one is this pillow here, and it says bloom, and look how pretty those flowers are. So once again, all these little itty bitty pieces are put together. You put them down, and then the machine does all the stitching down, so you don't need to worry about doing anything spectacular or long. I love that about machine embroidery. You can do some pretty striking things, and it does all the fun details. So this is the second pillow, and it's a floral bloom. And then the last one, I have to say, hands down my favorite. This little baby is called Bless Your Nest, and you'll see that there's 2 birds and we have a nest, and it's done the same way with all those little pieces of fabrics. You prep them, you put them down in the hoop, hit that button on your machine embroidery, and it does all the fun stitching for you. So once again, bless your nest. I think this is the perfect gift for anyone that's just getting married or anyone that loves the outdoors and birds like I do. So these 3 pillows, once again, Emma's Collage Pillows, are on this CD. And once again, so much fun, multiple sizes, and you can really have a blast using up those small little pieces that you have, those scraps. Okay, now we're down to the last pillow that I have. Look at this baby. This is the giant Zenia pillow, and it is designed by Laura Heine, once again from Fiber Works, and she is from Montana. I basically made a little pillow cover, but I love this Zenia. It is so bright, so vibrant, so much fun. And her pattern here gives you all the designs, complete instructions, super easy to make. All of the petals are double-sided, so you will see that they have double sides. They are free flapping. I don't know if that's a technique, but we'll call it free flapping so that you have some movement to your pillow. And then I opted for the very center part. I used a pretty fun fabric that I found for the central part of the flower. I wanted it to be distinct and colorful and bright and vibrant like the rest of the petals that go around. But I added some of this chenille around it to give it a little bit more fluff. It kind of reminds me of sunflowers that have that roughness. So I have this fun chenille I did in 2 rows just to accent that center fabric. And once again, all of these petals, they're free flowing. Lots of fun, and I love this. It is a huge pillow, I will say. Super easy to put together. I simply did just some stitching to secure the batting to the front, and then I added a binding for the pocket part, but super fun. This is a great throw pillow. It's got a little bit of humph and heft to it because of its size, but once again, the giant Zenia pillow and all of these fun scraps you can use to make this wonderful pillow that we have here. So the next item isn't really using fabric scraps, but I couldn't bring in something for scraps for this month without thinking about batting scraps, because I've got a ton of those just as well. I am so organized. Like, I have my fabric scraps organized by size. I cut them to squares, and then I have a bag for crumbs, and then I have buckets for leftover pieces. I am like super organized with my scraps, but batting as well. So batting, have you ever gone to make something and you get done and you just don't have the right size batting, but you've got all of these scraps? Well, this next item from Marty Mitchell is fusible batting tape. Now, for years, I would take a zigzag and I would sew those 2 pieces together, but oftentimes, depending upon what I was using, you could feel the zigzag on the finished product. You won't have that problem with this wonderful fusible batting tape. So you can take it. I like to make sure that I have 2 crisp ends. You're going to lay it down. And I like to do this on my ironing board. And then you will take your tape, put it on top. You're going to want to use an iron that has some steam on it. And then you cut it to size and you steam it on. And it's as easy as that. So I love that I'm able to use up my scraps of batting just as well as using up my regular fabric scraps. And once again, this is fusible. It's got fusible only on one side, so it's not going to gunk up your iron when you use it. It just really is a game changer. And it allows you to use all of those batting pieces that you don't know quite what to do. Maybe you've made 18 already pet beds with them, but this way you can use your batting scraps to make usable items for quilting and sewing. I want you to know that I used it in the Floorology little quilt sample that I have here, and you can't even tell it's there. It's that wonderful. So once again, you're going to want to pick up your batting fusible tape. You get 2 rolls on here. It's 1 inch wide, and you get 30 yards in this package. What a bargain. So the next item that I want to talk about was something that I got inspired from one of the customers at our Corona store at a Sew Fun Club. She had made a scarf, and I kind of looked at it and I went, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I went a little bit crazy though. So this is the scarf that I made, and anyone can make it, and it's all done with scraps. You can see that there's like little holes that I absolutely love that you can see through. It's kind of like Swiss cheese, but I used scrap threads I use scrap fabrics. You'll even find batting in here, just those little leftover things, like if you're cutting off the salvage, throw it in this type of item and you'll be able to use them up. So in order to do it, I'm going to do a demo in just a little bit. What I wanted to show you was that we're going to use our Floorology Wet and Gone Tacky, and you're going to want to get the size on this one is the 15 by 10, and you get 10 yards of this. It's 15 inches wide. And then the other item that you will need is our Floorology water soluble topping. Now the trick is that both of these items are water soluble. So you're going to use them to put together, and then you're going to do all your stitching, all your fabulous stuff that I will show you in just a minute. And then it washes off to this super soft, it's not rough, and I've got all different types of fabrics and strings and just fun stuff in here. And it's usable, it's fun, it's creative. I tell you, no two of them will be alike. So let me show you how to actually put it together. But the two products, like I said, that you will need is the Wet and Gone Tacky, water soluble, and also the water soluble topping. And just so you know, if you get one of these and two of the toppers, you can make 20 scarves. And you'll be set for Christmas. Really unique and fun gifts. So 2 toppers, 1 Wet and Gone, and you can make 20 scarves. Now let me get set up so I can show you the demo on actually how to sew it together. So now let's me get into that demo that I have of this wonderful scarf. And once again, this is using the Wet and Gone Tacky and the water soluble stabilizer, both by R&K. And the only other thing is to use all of the scraps you have. Now in this, like I said, I use scrap pieces, I use strips, I use salvages, I have like the binding edges that have a little bit of batting and a little bit of fabric. I literally raided my trash cans. I pulled out thread pieces. It was like my trash cans got a workover, and I kept a bag like this around. You'll see in this bag I have thread clumps that I have. I have, like I said, those batting pieces from trimming up a quilt before I do the binding. I have little shreds. There's just a cornucopia of wonderful stuff in here to make a scarf. So with that said, this is the sample one that I made. This is one that is put together. All the stitching is done. All that I need to do is rinse it out with warm water, and all of the stabilizer will basically wash away. Now what I did do, just a little word of advice, when I did my original one, I just rinsed it in the faucet with the warm water, and then it still was a little bit rough, we'll say. It wasn't very pliable. So I threw mine in the washing machine with just my regular clothes, and it is super soft and wonderful now. And like I said, because of all the stitching you do, it is super strong, and it's got all these wonderful flecks of colors in it. So let me show you how I actually put it together now. So you'll see here in front of me, I have this strip. Now, just to get it started, I kind of wanted to show you how I put it together. So you will see that I have the Wet and Gone Tacky, and then I have the topper. Now, my scarves I did at 64 inches long. So you'll see that the topper, I'm going to pull to one side. Now this water soluble Wet and Gone, I pull off a section, kind of secure it down, and it's tacky. Things will stick to it. So you may want to add some threads to the back, like so. Add a little bit of green. You can add a little bit of turquoise to the base, because keep in mind, your scarf is going to be seen from the front and the back. And then literally what I do is I just, like here's a batting leftover strip, is I just kind of let them fall where they fall. I do like to make sure that there are fabric pieces on both sides that show the fabric color. So that's just a little bit of leftover. I kind of place things. There's these little itty bitty, I'm talking crumb pieces. Look at these pieces, they're dinky, of fabrics that I just add in, let the stuff fall as they do. This one's a little bit bigger, so you may want to cut it down with your scissors. So I'm just cutting it up a little bit. This one too. There's no right or wrong, and I love sewing like that. When there's no right or wrong, you can just go to town, do what you want. I mean, how many places in life can you just do what you want? We always have restrictions and limitations. So I'm just kind of layering it around again, and I kind of push it down. Now, if I notice, like, this is one of my favorite fabrics by Tilda, and I want to showcase it. So I'm going to literally place it on the edge where I can see it. Here's another color wave of that. You can see this is the salvage that I saved, but wouldn't this be cool over here on the edge where that fluff is going to show? And then I'll save that for another part, but I'm just kind of placing this stuff around. You can see this one is leftover. We've got sewn bits and pieces. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want in here. Just throw in more little scrap pieces. Let me find some of those super fine little things. Now look at these things. This was from leftover when I trimmed up a block, when I squared up one of my blocks, and I had all this like little frizzle stuff. So it's all fair game. I'm now going to kind of put this stuff away because that is more than enough for this section. But the last thing that I want to do is add some more thread, because I think the threads make it just fabulous. Let me add some of this blue thread. Now, the threads that I used, like I said before, I used threads that I pulled out of my trash can, but you can also use just threads that you're not fond of anymore. On the first one that I made, I had used some threads that were no longer viable. So what I mean is when you do the thread test and you pull and they break too soon, those ones would be perfect just to add as little frizzle throughout. So then what you will do is you will pull the topper back over, and what I like to do is kind of smush it to where I get some of those spots that will stick it together, like so. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to do some stitching. So let me show you real quick how to sew it together. So you saw how I kind of put it together. I've got it up here on the bed by machine. I have a walking foot. Pretty important that you have a walking foot because you're going through multiple layers of thickness of fabrics, plus you have the two stabilizers, you've got threads. You need to have a walking foot on your machine. And then you're simply just going to sew. I'll try to keep my hands out of the way. Now I'm sewing in all different angles, all different areas. I kind of meander from one area to another. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I like to do some turns, lift it up, and I'm using my Baby Lock Jazz 2 here in the studio to sew this. So any machine, just as long as it has straight stitch and you can add a walking foot, you'll be good to go. So you're going to just keep sewing. The idea is to entrap and sew all of these bits and pieces together. Now let me pan out real quick. So this is the one that I've done all the stitching on. You can see that I have, this has the topper, here's the backing part. All of that's going to wash away. But I used a brown for the back, and you can kind of see all that stitching there. It's like chaotic, frantic stitching. There's no right or wrong. I love it. You can see that I do turns and twists. I just kind of let it go. And you'll also notice I don't mind that things are hanging off the edge. I think that adds to beauty and character to it. So I flip it over to the other side. And if you get real close, you might be able to see all those threads that have been trapped in all of my stitching. And I say for this type of scarf, if you think you have enough stitching, you're probably right, but it's never going to hurt to add some more because that's just going to stabilize this even more. Now let me bring up my finished item here so you can see, and I'm going to hold it one ply so you can kind of see that there's areas that are kind of Swiss cheese. that you can see through. You can see all the different fibers. I love that after I washed the scarf, I get the kind of frizzle edge, the rough edge parts of the fabrics that are fraying. That's just going to add to the beauty of it. You can see here I have some lettering. I've used, like this area here, there's a whole big gap where things didn't come through. But that's all okay. Just so much fun. Each of these scarves will be completely unique and so much fun. So, you should take some time, grab your Wet and Gone Tacky as well as your topper. Make sure that both of those are water soluble, and you too can use a bunch of your scraps to make some fun scarves. Okay, so for our show and tell this month, we have a drawing like we always do, and this month we have once again these Your Nest. I love this item. You can put so many things in it right next to your sewing machine so that you have it handy at any time. We're going to give away 2 of them. We have a black one and a turquoise one. They're valued at over $18 each, so they're a great tool to have by any sewing machine. So once again, the drawing for this month is one of each of these, the Nest. Now, to get you started off with show and tell, I always have a quilt that I've made to start. And this one I made. It is a scrap quilt to go along with the theme. And you will see that this quilt has a bunch of flying geese, but they're also free-flowing and they're also layered. So I just one afternoon made a bunch of these, and then I made strips and sewed them together for just a fun and unique quilt. So you'll see that I don't think I used any of the same fabrics. They were all scraps, all from either 5, 6, 4, 3, or 2.5 inch squares. Just fold it over to make a prairie point and then make a flying geese on the strips. Super easy, super fun. I love the way it turned out. I love the play on the black fabrics, and it was a lot of fun to make. So once again, this is my quilt for this month's Sew Fun Club. I can't wait to see what you have made. Machine embroidery, quilting, anything that you want to share. And you're going to load it up on our site here. So everyone, that is all the time once again that we have for our October Sew Fun Club. I am so glad that you took time out of your busy day to join us and see all of the wonderful things you can make with your scraps. It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing all of the items that you're going to do on our show and tell. So once again, don't forget to like, comment, and share, and visit our website, moors-sew.com, for all of your sewing needs. Until next month, bye-bye and happy stitching.